Discovery was completely based on the Star Trek 2009 and the Star Trek Beyond film. They're stylistically the same, action-orientated the same, and that is what they're based on. They are set in the Prime Universe. They're meant to be a prequel to Captain Kirk and a sequel to Enterprise, but they are separate in terms of stylistically. Now, that doesn't matter. Story-wise, the Klingons are still the Klingons, stuff like that. There's things that are different. They went for an Egyptian theme with the Klingons. They spoke pretty much always Klingon. The makeup was much more heavy. It's things that they couldn't do in the 60s and couldn't really do in TNG, because obviously what did they have in TNG? They had a Klingon on the bridge and you had to see him all the time, and you wanted the actor to be able to emote. And you'd seen Klingons in the motion picture, so you couldn't change it. It's what people were familiar with. These days, what they're trying to do is create a race with culture and with difference. And this is what happens when you get more money. Now, whether you like more latex, less latex, is entirely up to you. What you're focusing on is the story. In terms of Discovery, and in terms of even Star Trek Picard, and I won't speak about Lower Decks and Prodigy, but in terms of Discovery was a vast difference. It's a Canadian production team. It's produced in Canada for an American audience. Picard is produced in LA for an American audience. They've got two different production teams, access to different things. And what this is a show's progression of change. Change isn't a bad thing. This isn't the only thing to have changed. Prosthetics, the way the show looks, aren't the only things that have changed over the years. It's also the way they tell the stories. You had the original series episodic formula. TNG had the episodic formula. Deep Space Nine had a highly serialized formula, but a lot of the episodes were still moderately singular. And obviously Voyager was singular. Enterprise flipped and flopped between what it wanted to be when it was trying to find an audience. The Walking Dead, things like little comedies, even comedies were serialized. Santa Clarita Diet, The Good Place, they were all serialized. And what the TV landscape is doing now is trying to tell large stories on the small screen. Very different from back in the 90s or the 80s, where they were just trying to give the feel of these things. The Next Generation never felt like a movie, and either did any of the series after it. When you wanted to see a Star Trek movie, you went to the movies. Whereas now you can go on your screen and there's CGI in there that's most of the time is equal to the movies, if certainly better than the TNG and original series movies. And these things happen when you change production. The productions happens when time happens. People like different things over time. Younger people, for example, love Discovery. It's got a diverse crew, it has LGBTQI representation, it has African Americans, it has Asian Americans, it has a whole vast array of crew. It has lesbian crew members, gay crew members, non-binary crew members. It has all the things. Discovery represents what the world's things are now. Now, in the 60s, obviously you wouldn't do those things. No one accepted gays. You saw a gay on a show, that would not happen in the 60s. You wouldn't, you generally, and although it's disputed whether it had the first interracial kiss, you wouldn't have seen that. They were pushing the envelope doing that. And a lot of people didn't like it. TNG had a lot of episodes. They had an episode where, and I can't remember what the episode title was, but Commander Riker falls for a non-binary character. Non-binary character was played by a woman, and so to the average audience, he's fell in love with a non-binary character, but she looks like a woman. And the only representation really we got in the whole of the TNG era was Dax and her former host lover, where there was the first lesbian kiss in Star Trek. That was still a good couple of years after Will and Grace had already done kisses on TV. Queer as Folk had been out for a couple of years. A lot of things have progressed, and the TNG era was very much falling behind in terms of television, in terms of what they could show. Rick Berman was afraid to show that. Society was changing, Star Trek was not changing with it. This is why the TNG era ended up becoming a bit slow and a bit drawn out, and it didn't really fit in anywhere because the show wasn't doing things new. So when we got to Discovery, what did we get? Our lead was African American. Our characters around us were all the colors, skins you could have on this planet. There was different aliens, there was different ways of doing things, different ways of talking. And that was the true level of diversity you could have within a show. I'd say the only non-diverse thing they have is they all seem to have American accents, and if they don't, it's English accents. But that's not a problem. That's just the universal translator, I assume. Change within the TV spectrum happens very quickly. Doctor Who struggles with things. The reason people have an issue with Discovery and people have an issue with Doctor Who now isn't because the show got more woke, it's because they got more set in their views. TNG wasn't pushing the boundaries. They got used to their Star Trek being safe and doing everything in metaphor. That's not the way the world is now. If there is a problem, you face it. If there's an issue or a fight to have, you deal with it. Change is inevitable in television. It's inevitable in life. People have issues with Captain Picard or Admiral Picard being a bit depressed and a bit down. I don't know anyone who hasn't got older and just got a little bit down. I have days where I literally just want to lie in bed and stop. You have change in these shows, and it's not a bad thing. So what I tend to do when I watch these shows is I very much sit there and go, this isn't the Star Trek I grew up with. This is the Star Trek for those kids who are growing up. The ones who are looking for themselves and looking to find themselves, looking to grow and looking to change. It's amazing to watch this, and I spend a lot of time. I don't understand all the issues in the LGBTQ community, but I very much want to know about them. I don't know how to deal with a non-binary person. I don't know what makes them like that. But I'm a gay man. Of course I don't understand that. But shows like this teach you, and you learn from it. You learn to accept it as normal within your life. I don't know where I would have been without shows like Queer as Folk or even Will and Grace. Shows where I saw myself represented in these characters. And I know, and I've met them. There are younger people than me in their early 20s, late teens, who see Star Trek Discovery and see themselves. Who watch Star Trek Picard, and I see that, like I see in Star Trek Picard that these characters represent people. Change happens. And I'm along for the journey, and that's all I can be. I'm not always right. I don't always say the right thing. But I'm here to learn and to grow from my life. If you like my TED Talk, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. There'll be a new Star Trek Picard review on Thursday night, if not Friday morning. Make sure that you discuss this. What do you think about the changes in Star Trek? How do you think about change in society in general over the time? I hope to see you back again. We've reached 50 subscribers. I'd love to reach 100, or a couple of 100 million would be great, but 100 within the next couple of weeks. I hope you have a great day, and I'm signing out for